And then tell us about your experience with, I know I've told you my experience in the past with Realtor.com and Zillow on their flood rating and their zestimates, which I think is totally inaccurate. What's your feeling on that as a working agent out there, in the field?
So with like the Realtor.com flood rating, we've had some clients that we send them a house. It's a great house, exactly what they want. And they come back with Realtor.com says this flood rating is a 4. And they don't want anything greater than a 2. And I'm like, what does that even mean?
Oh, that was my next question, actually.
But they're not from here to begin with.
Really bad.
I know, they're not from here to begin with. So I'm like, anywhere in Houston, you're not going to have a 1 or a 0. Like, you in a bayou city. Like, the bayous overflow. That's what happens. Our streets flood. They're designed to. That's what happens. We get hurricanes because, that's geographically
Welcome
what
to the
happens.
Gulf and Texas.
Yeah.
We have an insurance company. I have no idea what a 4 is.
I don't know, but
it's what they consider a moderate risk. So
they're like, it's too risky.
They recommend.
Well, what's a moderate risk?
Well,
what's a moderate risk according to?
Look at Harvey.
50-50.
Look at Harvey. Things flooded that had never flooded before.
Exactly.
Nobody can tell you this will not flood.
Yeah.
Nobody. If they tell you that, run, because who knows what else they won't tell you.
Exactly.
Nobody can tell you that.
If it rains for 10 days straight anywhere, it's going to flood, period.
And to both of you, my next question is regarding flood, wind and hail insurance. How do you feel it affects clients and it affects the purchasing process?
It's a huge part of it because, quite frankly, it's a part of their qualifying. If you cannot, you can qualify for the mortgage payment, right? The principal and interest, but then you got to throw on taxes. You have to throw on the insurance. And if the insurance is ridiculously high, then that may keep you from being able to qualify for that home.
So it basically pushes up their closing costs.
Not their closing costs per se necessarily, just their qualifying. They can drive down their buying power.
Yeah, their debt to income ratio.
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone is, they're qualified. That's what I try to run a range with people to kind of give them
I was trying to walk you into perhaps the Biden program has something a plus, but it doesn't.
No.
Yeah, because the insurance piece of it can really determine. Because I always tell people, listen, if you're buying a house in Brazoria County, Galveston County, some parts of Montgomery County, Chambers County, you're going to need windstorm insurance. So you got to take that into consideration that on top of just the regular hazard insurance, there's hurricane insurance that you have to get. Period. And that can drive down your buying power.
Yeah. How about your Dawn? What's your experience on that from a client standpoint?
So I've had a couple. I had first-time home buyers buying a brand new build home. They went with the builder lender, and this builder happens to have their own insurance too.
Oh, they're starting to do that more.
They have their own insurance.
They're starting to do that.
And so I told them, I was like, look, shop around the rates. I gave them some people to talk to. I was like, they'll explain what you're getting with what it is. So they decided not to go with the builder's insurance, right? So they sent the builder's lender their insurance, and they're like, you can't buy the home because it puts you out of the debt to income. You can't afford this insurance. You can't buy the home. So they're like, well, what do we do? So they had to use, I was like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to use the builder's insurance to close.
Right.
After you close,
get your own.
Change to who you want to. I was like, what do you? Yeah, they're like, they just told us that we can't close. We can't do the house because our insurance is too expensive. We can't afford the house.
Freedom of choice. That's absolutely.
I was like, I was like, are you kidding? I was like, what insurance? They're like, we wanted, I'm not going to say the name of the builder, but
that was a new builder?
It's a new build, yep. And the house was going to be about $210,000. Yeah, they couldn't afford the house because they weren't going.
And James, explain to us what you were trying to explain to me yesterday regarding, and you did explain it to me, but I think we need to explain it to the builders. When you buy a house and you have the appraisal, and normally with a house with an appraisal, obviously you've got coming in and then that appraisal value has to be justified, and you were saying that perhaps you thought that the builders have an influence on the appraisal.
They can have an influence, or they have their own comps. So whatever they sell their home for, that's going to be their comp. They control the comps in the neighborhood. That's why they get so upset if a value comes in low, because it's like, oh no, we got the comps and I got this and that. Well, that's fine, but we still have an opinion of an appraiser to say, hey, whether or not this value is there.
And do you feel builders manipulate them?
They absolutely can.
How?
They control it. It's whatever they want to put. I've had builders.
So if they physically sell a house for $300,000,
I'm going to give you an example just so you understand. I've had a builder on the house, what the home was appraised for. They didn't want that to be disclosed because it would affect their comps. They sold the house for what it appraised for, but on their documents they wanted it to be a higher amount. So when they show, their comps or whatever in the neighborhood, they'd be able to show that higher value, even though that house didn't appraise for that much. They literally asked that question. I was like, I have nothing to do with that. What y'all do on your side, but this is what we're going to
So basically, say it was appraised at $325, they put it in at $380 as a closing figure, then gave the buyer $60,000 for closing costs?
Well, you can't do that. But they, on our side of it, they just put the number, the actual sales price, as like a reduction for the buyer. It wasn't like a credit towards closing costs. They just on paper made it look like it was a reduction from the actual price. That's what it's sold for.
That sounds a little bit like what was going on in the 2000s.
It's a manipulation of the numbers. It's just moving the numbers around.
And why do you think they push so hard for you to use their lenders?
Exactly, because they can do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Nope, they're not going to get any pushback.
And a lot of buyers, though, have this misconception. They say, well, I'm saving all this money by going to my lender at, whatever builder it is. And like you said with the insurance, but they're not. They're over the term of the loan, they're actually paying more.
Here's the thing. When you go into, and I'm not knocking any builder, you got to get your hustle however you're gonna get it. But what consumers don't understand is that builders walk into this plan before there's a shovel in the ground, knowing what they're going to sell those homes for, and they count for down payment assistance. They count for closing costs they're going to give away. They count for incentives. So those homes are already overpriced, period. So anything that they go in there with, they're not going to lose. The builder won't lose. You can't go in and you feel like, oh, we're negotiating and we got this. Yeah, you think you are, but that's just what they're,
It's already on a piece of paper with that salesperson.
Exactly.
They already know.
And that's what saddens me when you get buyers that go in there, not represented, going to the builders, they sit down with that sales consultant at the home who basically represents the builder. They're an inactive agent, so they basically,
they work for the builder.
They work for the builder. I'm trying to put my words. They don't
you.
necessarily have to be factual because they work for the builder. As agents, we have to be factual and honest and represent the client.
They have no ethics committee behind them.
Absolutely, and no organization controlling.
No.
Or monitoring them. And we've had instances where we've made offers for clients with builders, and on the specs it says, there's 2 air conditioners, and then when we do the walkthrough, there's 1 air conditioner.
Get your inspections on a new build.
Yeah,
they try you don't need an inspection. We have all these people that come walk through. Oh no, get an inspector to go through there.
We had one the other day, and one of our
money.
agents got upset because they got the inspection done, and on the inspection it said that the grading was backwards and going towards the house. And it's a matter of time before it floods. Mm-hmm. And it was south of Beltway 8, sort of near where you are. And the agent sort of got upset, and then what I said to the agent was, I'll call the inspector and see what he says, and he explained it. As an inspector that we use, 514 inspections, and he went and did it, and then he explained it. And then he said, well, when I was out there, I don't know if you know, but 3 doors down, it's been flooded.
Oh, wow.
And that's what happened is the grading wasn't correct with the builder. So that inspection is so important.
And some things that I'll tell my buyers who are buying new construction, I'm not telling them this because I think all builders are sleazy and they're going to try to get away with things, because they're not.
No, there's some good guys out there.
But it's humans doing these builds, and humans have errors. So that's why you get your inspection, is to make sure that these errors are caught before you move in and not after. So we had one, he wasn't my buyer client, he sold, but he was actually a buyer client for Snate. Hey, Snate. Sorry. And he told me that, he wasn't going to get an inspection. And both her and I were like, you kind of need to get one. So he got one and found out the floors are buckling. He would have moved in. A month maybe later, his floors would have started popping up.
Oh, wow.
For a new home?
For a brand new build. Yeah. They did something wrong with the flooring, and the wood was going to just start popping up.
He wouldn't have known if he got an inspection.
Not until after he moved in and was all moved in, and then what kind of hassle would that be? You know?
Wow.
And then in my house, there was something wrong with the type of, I'm not an electrician, so I don't know how to explain it, but there was something wrong with the way they hooked up the AC to the electrical, where my AC would have shorted out, possibly caused a fire. So they had to go in and fix that. I mean, the builders will fix it. All I do whenever I have a build, whether it's my home or my buyers, you send them the inspection. There's no negotiation. You send them the inspection and say, fix it. 99.99% of the time, they fix everything on there.
So with everything we've said in relation to the problems that you can get with buying new construction, do you think the builders are basically price gouging?
Oh, you can't really call it that. But they're definitely taking advantage of the situation.
An advantage of the low inventory?
Yeah, low
or
inventory.
All of the above?
Oh, like I mentioned before with the whole lumber thing, it's all kind of goes down to the consumer, where the consumer is the one that's having to pay for it. And unfortunately, many of them go in without any kind of representation. And of course, the person that's there with the smiling face is working for the builder.
And what's your opinion on that? Do you think it's price gouging? Or opportunism?
It's opportunism for the most. I mean, you also have to look at...
That's a polite way to say price gouging.
Yeah. So, I mean, you also have to realize that the builders are running a business and they have quarterly sales they have to meet.
Absolutely.
Once they've met those quarterly sales, that's where I think they start putting these people on these waiting lists. Because they can have a home that's ready to go, but they're putting them on a waiting list because they need next quarter to be as good as this quarter.
Yeah.
So that's where sometimes I think things get a little like, this home is ready to go. I mean, when I bought my home, I mean, I already said what builder it is, but when I bought my home, they wanted me to wait 45 days for closing. The home was done. Done. Yeah. Like, I could have been able to move in the next day. Done. And they wanted a 45-day closing. Why? They're like, well, your lender... I was like, my lender can do it in 20.
Yeah, but a lot of it is, like you said, like when you was in retail, is them salespeople, what have they got to do? They've got to meet quotas. Mm-hmm. You know, they've got to sell so many houses in a subdivision and get cleared out by a particular time. And that really is the pressures that some of them sales consultants have.
Yeah. I mean, when I was in retail, I had certain goals I had to make. And if I made all three, I got a big bonus at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that buy one, get one half off when you came in for one shoe. Oh, you buying one for half off. I know you only came in here to spend $100, but honey, you want to spend 150.
We're going to put another box in your hand. Yes.
And that's what I think that's the pressures of working for, some corporations and such like.